What's up YouTube and welcome back. Carrying on in the series of videos on renting in Toronto, we are still figuring out what amenities and necessities are going to be required for our new unit. So let's just dive right in. The first thing of deciding about the amenities is that you really need to be realistic about them. Do you really need a gym and a sauna and a rooftop terrace and daycare and a coffee shop on the ground floor and concierge? All of these things are amazing, but are you actually going to use them? Now, in the time of this pandemic, most of these things are actually going to be inaccessible. So you're paying for them to just sit out of reach. This really is something that you need to keep in mind, especially if you don't plan on being in a place for more than a year. Will you actually get to use them? And even if you are able to use them, will you use them? Are you the type of person who wakes up every morning and you want to go hit the gym? Or do you just aspire to be that person? Will you actually use the sauna, or does it just sound like a nice word? Keep that in mind, because these things can eat up your rental budget super quick, especially in terms of new buildings. And where we're seeing these impact renters the most is when they're in non-rent controlled buildings, because then the next year you end up being charged over $200 more when they decide to jack up the rates. So really understand what is a necessity when it comes to amenities. All of these things can benefit you, but only if you use them. Number 2, know your priorities about the unit, but be willing to sacrifice. When me and my wife were looking for our apartment, we were looking for a few things. One of the things on our list were a walk-in closet, a balcony, and an ensuite washer and dryer. We ended up in a place with a solarium, as you can see back there, but no balcony. Well, why is that? The balcony wasn't a priority. We live in Canada, so 6 months out of the year, that's going to be inaccessible. But things like the ensuite washer and dryer were mandatory, because previously we'd be going down a few flights of stairs, over into another building, into their basement, and then using one of 3 washers or dryers for 2 entire buildings of people. Most times these were in use, so we would just have to wait for the person to come back so we could use the washer or dryers. Or we would have to carry the still full basket of dirty laundry back up the stairs, out the building, and up more stairs. This wasn't something that we enjoyed doing, and it really made us resent having to do the laundry when it's not that bad of a chore. So having that ensuite washer and dryer truly did impact our experience, and it was something that we were willing to pay a little bit of extra money for. Balcony, on the other hand, we're willing to give that up if it gave us a spare room. You need to nail down what is your need versus what is your want. This will be a crucial distinction, because most time real estate agents like me will try to get you everything on your want list, but if it's not a priority, you might accidentally end up sacrificing one of your needs just to get a want. Keep that in mind. The third thing to know is, just like I talked about, laundry rooms and elevators. Let's start with laundry rooms. See if it's an ensuite. You need to make sure if you're okay with an ensuite, a pay-per-load, or non-existent laundry machines where you have to be going to a laundromat. Have you ever experienced that before, or is this going to be something brand new that doesn't sound too bad? Yeah, going down the stairs and just around the block doesn't sound too bad, but when you live in Canada and it's the middle of winter, you're not going to want to do your laundry, so you're going to end up paying more for someone to come pick up your laundry for you and then go and drop it off. That can get really costly really quick. So is that actually going to save you any money versus just getting a place with an ensuite washer and dryer? Keep that in mind. The second thing is going to be an elevator. Does it have one? Or is it an older building or a place that's under 4 floors where they're not actually required? I lived in a place without an elevator for a while, but I lived on the top floor. Every day it was up and down 3 flights of stairs, and it was awful. It puts a huge barrier between you leaving or returning into your apartment, and it makes going out a chore, because you can't just put on some slides and go out for a little walk. You have to get entirely prepared, go down those stairs, and then if you want to come back up, you have to go all the way back up the stairs. If you're an active person, it's not the worst thing in the world, then after a while you do get a little bit used to it, but it's still a barrier. Now, if it's a pet-friendly building and you have any pets, that's a huge barrier in the way, because if that pet needs to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, well, it's time to go do your stairs. The other thing to note, if it does have an elevator, how reliable is that? Knock on a few doors of the neighbors. Maybe not right now, but in the future. Knock on the doors of a few neighbors and ask them how reliable the elevator is. In the apartment that I'm currently in, they're very reliable. There's only one of them that ever goes out, but that's because it's in service as the cargo elevator. Or is it like the ICE condos where there's frequently lines down the hall, and people have said that it will add 15 minutes to your commute just to use the elevator. At the end of the day, you really need to make sure that this building is consistent with your lifestyle, because if it's not, it will be the biggest barrier that you will end up presenting. Now, of course, it's only going to be for another year, minimum, most of the time, but it still can be something that makes you dread that year, and quality of life is really, really important, especially when you're living in the city. The fourth thing that you want to keep in mind is going to be moving access. If there's no elevator, how are you going to do it? Like I said, in my previous building, we were looking at 3 flights of stairs, which meant that moving in was hell, but moving out was even worse because it was carrying furniture downstairs where there was a higher likelihood of us crushing each other. Granted, it did go a little bit quicker, but it was not a fun time. It took days when it realistically should have taken an hour because it was a 1-bedroom apartment. That's not enough stuff to take days, but it did because there was no elevator. Or if it does have an elevator, is it a large cargo elevator? Do you need to book or reserve that elevator? Is there an elevator deposit or an elevator fee? Is there a move in or move out fee? What does the access to the elevator on the ground floor look like? Can you back a truck into it? Or do you need to do what we did when we were moving into this building, where you need to go into the loading docks in a separate building, wait for a tractor, which is really just a man on a 4-wheeler with a wagon behind him, load your furniture onto that, have him drag you over into the garbage areas, take your furniture through the garbage areas over to the elevator access, up to your unit, and then walk it down that hallway from the elevator to your unit. Is that what you're gonna have to do? Because that wasn't a fun time. And again, that took hours when we were only allotted about an hour apiece. I think we ended up taking about 3.5 hours both times. So all in all, the move out process took about 15 hours. The move in process took about 7 or 8 hours. These are all things that you really need to be aware of. And even if you don't think it's going to be the biggest issue in the world, it can become an issue very, very quickly. So make sure that you are aware of that. And the fifth thing is a very simple one: parking. Just because it says it's included doesn't mean that it's included in the rent. They might just be saying that it's going to be assigned to you and you have to pay an additional parking fee. For our current unit, it is technically included, but you have to pay an extra $145 a month just to get the parking. Now, there could be optional or mandatory fees along with this, maintenance fees. If there's an electric vehicle parking spot, there could be fees associated with the charging sections of it. And you could also need to give an additional 30 to 60 days notice just to be assigned a parking space. These are all things that are crucial that you ask, especially if you have a car or you need to know if you will have parking accessible to you. So make sure that you ask the right questions, and if you have any, leave them down below in the comments. If you found this information helpful at all, please give a big thumbs up. But let me know down in the comments below, what is your must-haves in an apartment? Thanks.